It was more kind of, I was accidentally, in contact is how that worked, I think. If that makes sense. So, yeah, I think we have to talk to the board about possibly rescheduling.
And then you guys come over here.
Exactly.
That's a good idea. So I'd like to meet her.
Yeah.
She's impressive.
Well, I want to meet her. I look up to her for what she did for nursing, because that's what got me politically active, was nursing.
Sorry, Dawn.
Thank you. Hey, no problem.
Yeah.
If I may, I'd rather do this that way. It's less. Well, just very briefly, what my past has been, or what led me to politics. Actually, I worked for 15 years in a settlement organization for new immigrants in my writing, in my current writing. I ended up executive director, and when I sort of had done what I needed to do there, the MP at the time, Jacques Sada, he got me to work with him 10 years ago. And so I went to work for him as his writing assistant, and at that time I finally could be partisan liberal. I couldn't, before, while I worked for an NGO, I couldn't necessarily be very clear about my political identities. But from then on, I became an active liberal. So I worked with him for 6 years until he lost the election in 2006. And I became writing president also at some point. And then in 2008, I run, because Jacques Sada decided that politics was it for him. He had been too disappointed, so he was going. And so I decided to run. And it took a year and a half for the party to actually name me, the day before the writ was dropped, 2008. So I had 5 weeks to campaign. But thankfully, the writing is where I've always lived and worked, so I mean, there's a certain knowledge that was already there. And I lost the election on election night by 143 votes. Went on a recount, and I won by 69 votes 10 days later. So that was, I would tell you, the struggle of my life, because nobody believed that I could reverse 143 votes, and I told them I know there was something wrong in one of the ballots, one of the advance polling ballots. And it did, it was actually there. They had 50 ballots, they were with an elastic around them, put on the side, and they were all for me. All those ballots were all for me, and they never counted them. So, obviously I had someone who told me, it's one of the persons who was at the station, who told me, Alexandra, was something very wrong with that ballot box 608. So, we knew, and we went into a recount, and I did win by 69 votes, which is hardly a wonderful majority. But considering that I only had 5 weeks to do my campaign, and that I was running against a Bloc member, Bloc Québécois in Quebec is a very strong party, was a very strong party. I thought it was actually a very good Liberal victory. And don't forget that we were running under Mr. Dion at the time too, whom everybody thought was the worst leader the Liberal Party had ever had, especially in Quebec, because of the Parity Act. So that was also another thing. I personally like Mr. Dion a great deal. I have immense respect for him. I had no trouble with the platform, with the green shift. I had no problem whatsoever in explaining it or selling it. But there was a lot of resistance to it. So I consider it a very good Liberal victory. And Justin Trudeau and I were the only ones in Quebec who actually won seats that year. So we increased our seat count by 2 in 2008. This year it was a disaster. As we all heard about Quebec and how the orange crush or tsunami, or however you want to call it, not only took us down to half our members, but destroyed the Bloc. It went from 47 members to 4, so it was a major defeat for them. And after 2.5 years of very hard work, and I love my writing. I absolutely love my writing. I have a very diverse riding. I have 67 communities in the riding. It's a very prosperous riding, one of the most prosperous in Canada, not just in Quebec. And I've always lived and worked there. My passion for the riding is, I think, pretty obvious. And I did manage something in 2.5 years that not anyone before had managed, was to get a passport office in the riding. Because between the island of Montreal and the city of Sherbrooke, about 150 kilometers away, there wasn't a single passport office. And if you live outside of the island of Montreal, you understand the enormous challenges in crossing those bridges to get to the city. And people were very frustrated that every time they needed a passport, most people don't like to send it by mail, they like to go themselves with their documents. It was terribly frustrating. So I had introduced a motion in the House to have Service Canada centres be, how do you call that? They would be representatives of Passport Canada, so they could receive the documents, they could scan the documents, send them off to Passport Canada, and return the original documents to the citizens. And we did it. We got a passport office, not only in my riding, but in one of the ridings right beside me. And everybody told me, oh God, Alexandra, with this you have a certain win. You're in for the rest of your life. Well, I wasn't. It took less than 6 months to see that, those things don't really matter when people go with the tendencies of whatever is, I don't know. I don't even know. I can't explain what went through Quebecers' minds in May. I still don't understand. It's still something that I don't understand.
Sympathy vote, wasn't it?
A lot of it was sympathy vote. A lot of it, I think, was also telling us Federalists, why do you persist? We don't care about the federal government. It doesn't have an impact in our lives. They don't see it, and I think that's our failing. We don't explain well or properly, first of all, what an MP does, what an MP is supposed to be for constituents, and secondly, what the federal government still is for citizens. And I mean, the conservative government, our current government, is doing everything it can to take us away from being important to people's lives. They are trying to diminish the federal government to such a level that citizens will ask themselves, why do we need a federal government? And that's exactly what they're doing. So I think there's a lot of work to do in that, educating people about the role of the federal government and the way we liberals see it, of allowing for equitable access to all, to services. It won't ever be equal all over Canada because it's almost impossible, but at least equitable chances of everybody to accede to services and have the same services to everyone. So that is a major challenge. But the current position that I'm running for has a lot more to do with our party and the status of our party and what we need to do to make it relevant again. Make sure that Canadians understand it as the alternative that has to be the voice of most Canadians. Not all Canadians, but most Canadians. And to do that, I don't in any way, shape or form pretend to be proposing a platform, because that's not how I see the job. I think members have to be the first ones to tell us what we need to do to help members, to help local associations re-engage Canadians in this dialogue of what it is, a political organization, what we need to do as a political organization to talk to Canadians and represent them properly, represent their voices, represent their ambitions, their dreams, and be the best we can be for most Canadians. So because I'd like this to be a conversation and not just a one-sided thing, I would like to ask you to ask me questions. Feel free. Anything is on the table. Hello. Good evening.
My question is for you. You were mentioning how policy coming from from the party, and recently provincially we went through the process of in our last convention we've now announced that yes, we went through changing rules, and now all policy is supposed to come from the party, but that idea hasn't really trickled. It hasn't really gotten through to the actual caucus. So do you think it's gonna be a hard sell? I mean, taking policy from the party, if they're already established, policy framework, come election time, will it be possible to make sure the caucus keeps those policies in mind, the stuff that came from the grassroots?
Because I was part of caucus, I can tell you that one thing for sure, we never were consulted about the platform in 2011. We found out about the platform exactly at the same time as you did. The whole of the platform. We knew bits and pieces here and there, but none of us was ever consulted fully on what the platform was going to look like. There was very much an understanding, I think, for the past few leaders, not just now, that the platform for an election campaign had to come from the leader's office. And that's how it's been for a while. Even the Green Shift, I mean, it was a magnificent platform, but I don't think a single member was consulted then on this. However much we may admire the platform, and it was a very good platform, it wasn't a member's platform. It wasn't drawn by members. So I think the caucus right now, first of all, is confronted with a reality that they never thought they would be confronted with, and is very, very conscious that if we don't get our members to be re-engaged and participating, we won't go any farther, and I think we'll go smaller and smaller until perhaps we disappear.
Then what about the leader's office? What about the rest of the party structure?
Well, right now we have an interim leader, okay? And Bob Ray is very aware of that. I think he's been doing all he can to open up the party as widely as possible, both in our website, which has been a good change in the way the website works, but in the way he approaches members when he travels around the country. But he is an interim leader. Now, I think what a lot of members, and this is from Facebook discussions, so I mean, this is not scientific, but from what I've read on
It's gospel, come on.
From what I've read on Facebook discussions, I think a lot of members are actually quite pleased with the time we're having right now to rebuild this party to our image as members, and then that we go and get a leader that will be able to carry the party, but not the other way around. We are doing the rebuilding. We are, redefining our values and trying to, frame them in a way that is good and comfortable for us members. And then we will go into the selection of a leader that will best carry that. Maybe that is the solution for us, to change the way we do things. That's not what we've done before. We've always gone very quickly from one leader to the next. And it's been like this for the past, 5 leaders, if I'm not mistaken?
Just a quick question. When I say the word oil sands, what images do you have in your mind?
I have a lot of the preconceived ones of environmental disaster and the extreme use of resources such as water. On the other hand, I know, and I've been reading as much as I can on the subject, that there are ways actually to explore the oil sands that are much more environmentally sustainable, and they have been developed here in Alberta. Is it a question now of convincing the big oil business heads to use those methods of using the resources in a much more sustainable manner? And I mean, it seems to be common knowledge that the technology is there, the science is there to do it responsibly. So if we can do it responsibly, why shouldn't we do it? It is a resource.
You wouldn't win any votes in Alberta with that kind of an answer.
Why?
Because there's an image that the Liberals or Central Canada knows better than Alberta. And
But what I'm telling you is that I do know that the technology has been developed, and it has been developed here in Alberta to make it a
I
sustainable.
would suggest it's not developed, it's always in development and developing and being implemented.
Slowly and
No.
as it comes?
As it comes, because, the oil companies, of course, they want to make more money.
Mhm.
And this is a good thing, and they do improve environmentally, right? It's what the definitions between perception and, well, it needs to be environmentally friendly. What does that mean? And I don't think
Sustainable, I think, would be more my my preference.
You know
That it is sustainable in the sense that the environment isn't completely destroyed.
We leave the oil sands, but the oil sands, well, this was in a document 8 months ago. The emissions from the oil sands account for 5% of all the total emissions in Canada.
Yeah, I know. I'm very aware of that. It's not the oil sands that cause our problems with respecting
Like,
quotas
lots of
or,
people down east,
yeah,
we're the bad guys in North America.
yeah. And even in the States. Yeah,
My
sorry,
dad's
this
down-
gentleman, this
Yeah,
gentleman.
but I don't think Brendan's right, that we're the bad guys. I don't know, my dad's a little
Oh,
from
that
down
was
east.
my image
Okay.
to a number of the people.
To some people, yes, but I mean, I think a lot of people have also started
I
to
know.
realize that it's not that black and white. Sorry, sir.
Yeah, bilingualism, I think that people in the federal scene should be bilingual, but what's your view about Supreme Court judges? Should they be able to speak French?
Yes, I believe they should be able, that they should be proficient is another question. That they should be able to speak and read French, yes, I do believe they should. Because there are cases where they actually won't have any sustainable, documentation that isn't in French.
But that excludes a lot of very bright lawyers across the country.
But there's so many bright lawyers that are bilingual. That are actually bilingual.
I'm sure there are, yeah.
And I do have a problem, for example, with the attorney general, not the attorney, I'm sorry, the AG, the auditor general, yes.
From New Brunswick, that
Yes.
guy was just appointed.
Coming from a bilingual
From
province.
Brunswick, he should have been able to speak.
Exactly, I find it disturbing that he isn't able to speak French.
So is he from Fredericton or?
It's irrelevant to his job.
Yeah, I'm gonna say, like,
It's
having
not.
lived in New Brunswick, as the concept of it being a bilingual province, if you're around Dieppe and Moncton, yes, it's a bilingual province, but if you're in the capital, Fredericton, it's predominantly English-speaking
Right,
people.
yeah.
And I mean, my family roots are there, they're English, and nobody in my family in New Brunswick speaks
It's French.
French. So to simply say that it's a bilingual province, yes, the government has determined that the government is bilingual. and
Well, but
yes,
he was
yeah.
a member of, well, I mean, he was an officer of the government. That's what I'm saying, not because everybody is brought up in the two languages.
Well, I come from Quebec, and I'm English.
Yes.
And I have no problems with the fact that lots of the civil service of Quebec could only speak French. Not a problem. The government
Oh, but I do
service-
have a problem with
Government
that.
services in general were provided to me in my language when I needed it. If I went in and there was 3 people to talk to and 2 of them could speak English and 1 couldn't, I was not offended by the one that couldn't.
But
It's
you were
not-
always given a choice, that you
I'm
had
given
somebody.
a choice,
who-
but I don't expect the best, especially not as you go higher up. I don't expect the people to have to be bilingual because they just have to be able to get in touch, to talk to their staff. So I have no problem with an auditor. I would have no problem with a French auditor general who doesn't speak a word of English.
I would. Personally, I would.
But I mean, it's an irrelevance to what he's doing, really. It would be nice if he could, monitor documents in both languages.
And now I'll just, I mean, these are
That's just
private
right.
things, I don't want to disclose necessarily what happened, but I've been in communication with the leader's office, our leader's office, about the translation of press releases from English to French. They're there, they're translated, and they're correct,
Yeah.
but you don't have the cultural correctness that they need to make sense in French.
But they should, I mean, that's.
Precisely,
The
which
saying
is,
that they're correct that way, like a Google Translate, I would not expect to give me a proper translation.
no,
for what-
a Google translation is not a correct translation. These are correct translations, but they don't make emotional sense, if you wish. When you are reading it, you know you're reading a translation, that you're not reading somebody who actually wrote it in that language.
Okay, but there are, plenty of good translators available that speak.
Agreed, and that's why I'm saying, I mean, we need to work on this. We need to make sure that we have these resources in the Canadian government and in political parties.
Yeah.
It's part of who, one company, one private company in Canada that impresses me with the degree of cultural linguistic adaptation is WestJet. They get it. They really do get much more than Air Canada, which should have been a fully bilingual company a long time ago. But WestJet gets it. I look at their slogans, I said, wow, this means something to me in French.
I think we're getting into policy.
And we are, and Dawn is.
What is the role of the president in your mind?
We're a president, well, the president is the president of a board that is elected to represent members. And the president has to be the person where the members can channel their aspirations or their requests or their suggestions, present them to the board, and ensure that there's a good, honest discussion on what the members are telling us. This is a president of a board of directors, sorry.
Sorry, I just wanted to ask you a question.
Yes.
I
I was just answering the definition. Yeah. It's mostly for me, that is what a president should do. Look for consensus. I mean, that's something I've done all my life in all the work I've done. I don't think it's up for the president to dictate either policy or ways of doing things. That should not be the job of the president, in my opinion. First of all, we are a democracy and we have to hear what other people have to say. And the whole concept of consultation should not be just an ad-libbing little thing that is nice to put in documents. It should be done properly, and we have the technology now to do it. If we take the example of the convention, the extraordinary convention in June, the 18th of June, I think the party proved that we can do it in a very organized manner, that we can make sure that members participate in the consultative process, and that we give them a chance to voice their opinions. Okay, it wasn't perfect, but it was a lot better than what we've done in the past in consulting members. And we should broaden this and do more than just have biennial conventions, where, you know, we lose a lot of the interest of our membership in what is actually happening in the party from one biennial to the other. I would like to see us having these conversations every 6 months.
Actually, there is one Sunday evening at 6 o'clock.
With all the members?
You should have got an email.
Oh, yeah, I just got a
Okay, but for Alberta. Alberta members.
National.
Oh.
Came as a shock to us too.
It came out today.
Email just came today.
Came into the leader's office.
Oh, okay. Thank you. I should be home by now. Well, but the thing is, we're going to be at the convention in BC. Well, I will be flying back on the night this Saturday to the Sunday, so I will be home by 6, but okay. Good to know, thank you. Dawn had a question, sorry.
So communication is obviously very important to us out here in Alberta, because unfortunately, to this point, we have not had an MP in quite some time, especially in Calgary. Right now, a lot of that communication has been starting to open up and expand into the ridings, which is what we are really working towards. But we also have our LPCA, who sits at the table with the other presidents of
The different provinces,
of all the provinces, so that we have a voice in that respect as well. What is your opinion on keeping the PTAs versus removing them? Because that is a concern. We've seen what Harper's done with removal of PTAs and how nobody can get through the communication lines any longer and get any information out.
My basic state is we are a federation, and as a federation, we have to have a federative structure too as a party. The country is a federation, and we as a party should represent that federation. PTAs are part of our history and how we've made the party work in the past. Right now, I think we have a very complicated and complex structure. There are a lot of positions that seem to be very confusing for members. They don't really understand who is doing what, who they need to speak with to get information, to get answers. We have a lot of work to do in that sense, to simplify this structure and make it clear. I mean, an organizational chart has to be understood by everyone who actually is part of the organization, I think. So in no way, shape, or form am I in favor of eliminating the PTAs. That we have work to do to make them more efficient, clearer. I've been given often the example of the PTA in BC that has reorganized its mission and its whole functioning to make it a very efficient one in assisting the EDAs, the riding associations, to doing what they do best, which is outreach. For example, they've named one financial officer for the whole province. So there's one financial officer. He is hired full-time to do all the reporting for the province, for all the ridings. So the ridings don't have to worry about this. In the ridings, we depend on volunteers to do these things. And sometimes we get angry because they didn't respect whatever deadline Elections Canada gave us, or the information wasn't complete, or we don't know. If you have somebody who is given that mandate specifically and is paid for it, but does it full time for the province, maybe that is one way of alleviating the EDA and letting them do what they do best. This is a proposal. This is not necessarily the solution for every province or for everyone, but those are the things that are being discussed by members. My job, if I'm elected president, is to hear all the suggestions, put them on the table, and let's see what works best. What I don't like at all, and I've said this for many years now, not just because I'm running for president now, I don't understand how, as a party, there is one federal constitution for the Liberal Party of Canada, and the PTAs have constitutions. That I don't get. We are a federation, we have one constitution. Okay? The provinces don't have constitutions. So I don't understand how, as a party, we allowed for the PTAs to develop constitutions.
We're a party of lawyers.
I'm not one of those, I can promise. No, but I really, that is one thing that I've never understood. Again, maybe somebody will give me a very good answer for that. I don't understand why we have so many constitutions.
I'm not sure if you're aware of something that Alberta has put into place, which is working very, very well here, is called Victory Plus. It's an offshoot of the Victory Fund.
Mm-hmm.
What our president did is he negotiated with the party so that some of that money actually goes in to pay for the PTA things that are happening. So it's split between
The national
LPC,
and LPCA.
and the ridings. So it's a three-way split, and this way the money is able to be funneled out without having to dry out the ridings or dry out LPCA.
Okay.
So the money, because the money is being cut through the government now for the money
Yeah,
that we
subsidies,
get,
the vote subsidies, yeah.
this is how we're going to be able to actually help keep our PTA alive and well. It's through our Victory Plus.
Well, in Quebec, you can't have it here because you don't have MPs, but EDAs in Quebec pay a franchise to the party, to the Quebec, the LPCQ. If you have an MP in the riding, it's $5,000 a year. If you don't have an MP, it's $1,500. So that's the way they've survived. But that formula has, I think Nova Scotia has it too, or very similar to that one.
Saskatchewan's moving towards it.
Towards
I think
it.
BC's also thinking
Again,
about it.
something that has to be looked at. These are all the new things that we have to face very shortly. Just the financing is going to be a huge challenge. How are we going to fundraise to help us maintain this party? We are going to lose the vote subsidies in 3 years' time. It's gone. And
So if you are elected president, what will you do to increase the competence and organization of the party at all levels?
first, there is, I think, stacks, and I don't think I'm exaggerating when I say stacks of documents, of proposals, of studies that have been done through the years by the Change Commission, by the Red Ribbon Commission, by this, by that. I think it's there. All the proposals or all the things that we need to start looking at changing are there. So I think one of the things we have to do is get those documents out of the drawers or the shelves or wherever they are, and look at them. Okay, this is good, fine, we take it. If this is bad, goes to the shredder. But make a clean slate of what we have, use what we have, what has already been the work of so many volunteers. Most of this has been done by volunteers.
Does this include the Red Book?
Those were platforms, those were election platforms. I'm talking really about all that has been done by volunteers for the party, the structures of the party. The Change Commission, among other things, that was done right after the convention in 2009, had an enormous amount of proposals, and not many have been implemented. And yet the board said that they were going to implement them. And those changes had been proposed by members in the ridings throughout Canada, not just by 3 or 4 people somewhere in Ottawa who had decided this is the way to go. So we should use those documents. I don't think we have to reinvent the wheel. It's there. The knowledge is there. And that's how I believe we will put the institutional memory of the party to use. I don't think throwing the baby with the bathwater is necessarily the way to go. There have been things that have been successful for the party, that have worked well. And we can never forget that we are liberals. So we don't follow rules like everybody else. We like to go each her own way. And so it's
the
part.
multiple constitutions.
Yes, exactly. But I think it's part of what makes us also very strong when we can see the forest for the trees. And right now I think we're just seeing the trees. First of all, we've been involved in too many elections in too few years. There's never been really time to take a breather and say, okay, we have to face facts, we have to reorganize. After 2006, had we been given some time to actually think clearly about what was going on, perhaps the leadership would have permitted us to get to that point. But it wasn't. We were in a minority situation. We knew we needed a leader quickly and we needed to get our act together quickly because we could have an election anytime. So that has never allowed us, since 2004 we've been in minority situations. We've never had the opportunity since 2004 to actually rethink where we're going and redefine ourselves as a 21st century party.
I just see us sort of stuck in this almost this vicious cycle of people are attracted to competence, but when you have a lot of people to draw from, you can draw the most competent people from that pool of potential volunteers, or you can put people to work in where they're best suited to work. Whereas right now we have neither the large enough number of people nor the existing institutional memory here to have to have a really competent organization. Therefore, it's very difficult for us to draw more people. So I don't know how to break out of that.
But I actually do think you have been in Alberta. And then, surprisingly enough, Facebook has been my contact with Liberals in Alberta. I had very little contact with Liberals in Alberta. And what I've been learning, I met Michelle through Facebook. That's how we met. So that's how we know each other. And but not just Michelle. And what I've seen is that there's a lot of very engaged people who have knowledge in many different aspects of businesses, different businesses, communications. A lot of good communications people here in Alberta. Some of the slogans we've seen quite nicely on Facebook have come from Alberta. And so we have to give these people a reason to participate. Facebook is hardly the Bible. It's not where we should be looking at ideas. We should have the possibility to tell them, okay, would you like to participate in this commission? Would you like to, get on board with this CDA or participate in the outreach activities of whatever? And yes, we have to also make a census of the competence that we do have throughout Canada.
Especially in Ottawa. Finding.
But I see that we have a certain number of people and we keep drawing from the same pool of people and we have a small number. When it comes to fundraising, when it comes to attending events, none of us feels that we have the option of opting out. This week I've got out of 8 days, 6 I think Liberal things I have to go to. And
You're very dynamic.
No, it doesn't.
That's one.
No, but there are 3, possibly maybe 3 leadership things happening this week, and then there's the telephone call, and then don't even ask me about provincial
Leadership,
stuff.
provincial leadership?
No, the telephone call that we all just got the email about.
Okay.
So there are all these things that are happening, and then there's fundraisers and the various. But what bothers me is that whenever we just had Oktoberfest. We had soccer. I'm on some position on my thing. I'm really exhausted right now.
You had Halloween?
So, yeah. So unfortunately, I just feel like we keep getting. Sorry, I don't want to talk. But
You want to talk?
Burnout.
Yeah, burnout's an issue.
Sorry.
Yeah, so burnout. No, sorry.
that wasn't a question as far as I can tell. So. But I would like to ask about the national office. And there, you know, there were layoffs and everything after the election. But do you think that there is a more substantial change in the way at the office that's needed in the
But
reorganization?
to tell you the very honest truth, I have no idea how the national office works. I've been to that office perhaps half a dozen times. It has 2 floors, loads of offices. There was a lot of people. There are a lot less people now. I don't know how the structure, and this I'm not blaming anyone. It's also my fault perhaps in not investigating further. Ian McKay, the current executive director, is actually a very accessible person. You ask him questions and he answers. Is there efficiencies to be had there? I'm sure there are. And I think he'd be the first one to tell me that there would be. But there has been a lot of people that have been let go. Because the budget isn't
more,
there.
you know, not the efficiency as much as do you think the office functions are focused the way they need to be? Coming back to some of your
the national
earlier
membership
comments
list,
about-
okay? I'm just going to talk about the national membership, which was a big change in the 2009 convention, okay? We centralized memberships to all. I still find it baffling that a member who signs up a form, a new member who signs up a form on September 1st, has to wait until January to get a card. I don't get it. The moment the party receives the application, it shouldn't be terribly difficult to have the little card printed and mailed. Seems to me that those are automatic things. And they are. I mean, in terms of technology, that's how technology works. You go to Costco to get your membership card and it's done instantly in front of your face. So those things, yes, I don't understand why we're taking so long. And I've asked that question very often. And don't tell me that you're doing checks on the person applying. I mean, we're not the FBI here. I mean, I don't think we need to start checking on who's applying to be a member of the Liberal Party of Canada. I was given that excuse, that I were trying to cross-check to see if the person was a member of another party. Okay, you're going on good faith. If the person says that they aren't, which is actually on the form, you've affirmed that you are not a member of another party, at least in the ones we have in Quebec, yeah.
See, that bothers me. I didn't know that because I know many people who are politically active that have memberships with every party so that they can get feedback from each one to know what they're doing. But I'm a part of
All
some anarchists.
constitutions say that, all parties,
Really?
NDP, Conservatives and others.
Oh, so my anarchist friends are just pulling a fast one.
Yeah,
Okay.
they are, because it's actually in all the constitutions. And it makes a certain amount of sense. Because when you are a member, you're privy to certain information and, you know, certain access to things that you shouldn't be sharing with all the other ones.
Unless,
I cannot speak for the current Conservatives, but under Reform and the First and the Alliance,
Yeah.
and until they were Conservatives, no. It was not, the Liberals are the only party in the country that has an exclusive
NDP.
membership.
Go look to the NDP constitution.
Okay, well then,
It's very clear.
provincially in Alberta, I know you can be a member of anything except Liberals and something else.
But you know why this came about, the NDP thing? I actually wasn't aware of it. I thought we were the only ones too. When Nicole Turmel, the leader, the current interim leader of the NDP, was found out to be a member of the Bloc Québécois, while she was also a member of the NDP, and a member of the one of the protest, it's a provincial party in Quebec. It was a big scandal because in the constitution of the NDP it says that you can't belong to another party, provincially or federally.
Oh.
That's a charter issue, I could go against that, it's illegal. And we put in the charter, you think we'd be the first to take it.
To take that out?
Are you sure you're on order?
Yes, sir.
So let's say sitting on your campaign when you get into office, and if there was one thing you'd be able to pick that you would like to change as being party president, only one thing, what would that thing be?
Response to members.
Response to members?
Right now our members feel, I think, that we really don't pay attention to what they're saying. Whatever they're saying, be it a question or be it a remark. that they make. And I hear this in the writing. They try to send emails to the party, they phone, they leave messages, and they don't get any feedback. So that is one, I think, big problem that we have. It's no way to keep your membership loyal if you don't pay attention to them.
How would you change that?
Well, I'd make it a very big obligation, and I think once a year we should send out a form to members to question them on the services they receive from the party. It's the way to judge how your services, like any other service-oriented business, you actually poll your clients. In this case, our members. Are you satisfied? Are you getting what you think you should expect to receive as a member? Feedback, answers, information, activities. Do you get enough activities in your area? Do you see enough liberal life happening around you? Maybe too much, maybe not enough, sorry. But that I think is fundamental for us to make sure that our members regain their place at the center of the party. We've forgotten the membership very much. Sorry.
Sorry for walking in late. I was
No,
just outside the
thank
door.
you.
I was just outside the door on the National Women's Liberal Commission, waiting for Ed. So one thing we were discussing there, just to kind of go on with that topic of conversation, is just an idea to consider, is the idea that I think what's missing sometimes is the personal touch. Because we send out emails and we all get emails, and I'm at the point where I ignore any liberal email that comes through.
Because most of the time it's asking you for money.
Exactly, or it's, you know, saying something else, but it's probably asking for money as well, so I just completely ignore it. But if I received a phone call from someone even across the country, just like, all they're saying is, thanks for buying the membership, have a nice day, kind of thing. You know, it would add that extra, you know, human touch, like, oh wow, someone actually cared that I just bought a membership. But I know with 60,000 members or whatever, it's kind of a difficult idea, but it's all.
But that's one of the things EDAs should be able to do if the national membership service worked well, is provide EDAs with list of new members for the ridings every month. Every month your president would receive the list of the new members, and then he could get on the phone. I mean, you won't have 300 new members in a month. So you get 10 or 12 or 15 names, and you pick up the phone on a Saturday afternoon and you call them. Thank you for becoming a member. And I agree with you, this personal touch, but this comes back to the riding associations. They are the ones who can and will eventually cross that person on the street or invite that person to an activity. So if there's that first contact that is made, you will feel much more likely to accept an invitation from him or her when they send you an email than if you never heard from them before, I think.
Would you like to tell me what you feel about collaborating with, say, other party members or other party heads? Dion did this, or attempted to do this with the Green Party, where one would have a stand candidate.
No, non-competitive agreements?
Yes.
First of all, that would not be for the executive board to decide. This is a leadership decision. This is the leader of the party will have to decide that.
Okay, so not.
It's not the board that decides that. My feelings on it, I'm conflicted, very conflicted. I really like the idea of preferential voting, where you actually express a preference for the candidates in your riding. But I think Canadians need to know what on earth MPs stand for, what they're doing. Because Canadians are voting as if they had a proportional system. They're voting for leaders. They don't vote for the MP or the future MP. I mean, because I've known other systems and I've lived under another system, I love first past the post. Much as this is not popular to say, but I love it. I do. For the simple reason that when I got elected, my constituents knew, all of them, for whatever their party, that I was there for the constituency. I wasn't there for the Liberal Party of Canada. I was there for the constituency. The moment I'm elected, I represent all constituents. If you are on proportional system, you represent your party, and that's it. You are elected on the list, you know, you're picked from the list, and you represent your party. You don't even have an office. in the constituency. You go to any country that has proportional system and they have no idea who their MPs are. None. Nobody knows. Because these are lists that the party leaders decide and grade on however, whatever they decide has to be the criteria. Preferential is a mix of the two, where you actually give in your ballot, you actually state who would you best like because of their political party, and who would you like secondly because of the person he or she is. And the first person to get to 50% plus one becomes the MP. That, for me, would be a better, perhaps, mix of the two. And I would like to see that. But that is perhaps a conversation as a party we should have. Would we eventually like to see these proposed as platform?
It's ridiculous if somebody with 30% of the votes gets elected.
We have to be excused. We have another
Well, thank
meeting.
you very much. I know you have to go to the board, and thank you for staying so long. Thank you for coming. But which is why I tell you, I like the first past the post in the way that after the election we are connected to the writing and not to the party. But to better represent in terms of popular feeling, perhaps the preferential vote, which is a mix, would be the better way. And then you'd get someone elected who got 50% plus one of the vote.
You know, the Fair Vote Canada people feel that way too, that they haven't decided which version they're for.
Yeah, I know this is a big discussion.
Different countries, especially different versions. I know that the whole system involved the voter to a greater extent than it is right now. Feel more empowered, and that should increase the vote count.
Yeah.
Growing problem in Canada.
So the turnout is incredibly anemic, to say the least, right now. It's actually dangerous because that's what allows people like Stephen Harper to pass. His base always goes to vote, and his base is 36% of the population. It won't go beyond that, but they go vote. And how many of our liberals, and probably you know as many as I do, who stayed home, who didn't see any reason to actually go vote, either because they didn't like the leader, or they didn't understand the platform, or because they thought anyway that I vote or not, it won't make a difference, because, you know, here in Alberta, for example, they never win, the Liberals, so why should I go vote? How many Liberals probably sit at home and don't go to the ballot box and put their vote in because they don't see it makes any difference?
But that's a long attitude, so.
I know, I agree, but perhaps the preferential vote would be a way of encouraging that, because then they could see that perhaps in ridings, I haven't tried, but I think somebody did right after the election, and that in Alberta we would have gotten 2 seats. Not huge, but it wouldn't be bad. It's a good beginning. Okay, sorry there, okay.
By just what you said, struck a chord. At the last election, the party told us to batch up our bingo sheets and send them in, and they would have